I want to talk about the inner work of transformation right now. So, we are in a time where, in so many ways around the world and around the country, transformation is really clearly needed. So many systems are highlighted as failing us and as failing in general. And a lot of people are angry, rightfully so, as being at the brunt of the injustice of failed systems, systems that just do not work for everyone. Um, I think it's important to remember that systems don't work for everyone. That's how it goes. Unfortunately, it is absolutely impossible to create a system that really truly affects and supports every single individual within it, because every single individual is so different and has such different needs. I think that a big part of what is going on right now is the reminder that we need to stop assuming that our systems are going to take care of us, and we need to start assuming more responsibility for our own inner well-being. Does that mean that we can be discarded by systems and completely discluded from systems? Absolutely not. However, I think it is a very important reminder of the power that we all individually hold to take care of our own needs. And from that inner work is where so much of the change in the systems will develop. I think that it's easy to jump on the systems and jump on the groups and jump on the government and people like that to seek change. And yes, political change needs to happen. Systemic change absolutely needs to happen. However, I think the point that I'm trying to get across is that that is not the only level that it can happen, first of all. Second of all, for change to happen at that level, it needs to happen at the level of every single individual. So it has to happen with every single individual who has control in those systems and in politics, right? But we cannot seclude them alone, right? We can't just say that they're the only ones who need to do inner work. We all need to do the work. And the more we all do the work, the more the systems will change. There's no way around that. We can't just live a life of pointing fingers, asking for other people to make things more supportive to us. No one knows you better than your own self. So a big part of this needs to come back to, we need to do the work for ourselves and trust that doing the work for ourselves will result in these changes. Right? Systems are made up of people, and how the people relate to each other and interact with each other and communicate with each other is what's going to create the systems, right? And how we relate to each other and communicate with each other and interact with each other is a direct reflection of how we relate to ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, how we respond to our own lives. It all builds up. The system is the last stop. So while we are doing change at the systemic level, policy change, whatever else that we might need, we need to be working on those other levels too. You can't just keep cutting down leaves and assuming that the weeds are going to die. You have to go to the roots. And the roots here are us and how we connect with ourselves and how, as a result of that, we connect with each other. I think about the transformation cycle. When we think of transformation, we typically think of action, doing something differently, right? But in order for action to happen, in order for something to be done differently, we must have the intention to do it differently. And in order to have the intention to do something differently, we have to have the change in mindset. We do not change our actions if we do not have a different mentality towards something. It is our beliefs that shape our world. Is it our attitudes and our perspectives and our level of awareness that shapes how we approach things, which ultimately shapes the action about it, which is why action becomes extremely easy to change when you are changing the attitude that creates the action. And then the action, the success or failure of the action is going to be reflected back into your ideals, your visions, who you are, what you value, and what you believe in. But again, we as humans tend to go straight to the actions and straight to the systems because we think that that's the fastest way because we are so incredibly impatient. But the reality is we need to focus on the work that gets us there. The systems change when we change. The actions change when we change. So yes, as much as policy change needs to happen, conversations need to happen, what also needs to happen is this level of personal development. And when I think about that personal development, when I think about the work that I do with mindfulness, I think about a couple of things. First of all, bringing mindful awareness to your life on a daily basis helps you to become incredibly aware of and accepting of the reality that is around you and where you exist within that reality and how you exist in relation to other people and other things and within the system. All of that is our reality. The more we practice bringing awareness to our everyday lives, non-judgmentally, so we're seeing things for exactly what they are, exactly how they are, the more we lift the veil from over our eyes. We have this clarity, and from clarity we are able to see exactly what things are, how we are acting in relation to these things, and what change can come from that. Building that level of mindful awareness helps us to really be aware of the ugly sides of our minds and our actions with less judgment, so that instead of responding to our shortcomings with more shortcomings, which is anger and hate and guilt and everything else towards ourselves, we respond with, whoa, curiosity. Why is this like this? Where does this come from? This doesn't feel good. Maybe I do want to change it. We are a lot more apt to change when we aren't afraid of doing something wrong, when we feel supported in that change, when we feel supported for who we are right now, which is the other big piece of mindfulness, which is love, that unconditional acceptance. Every single time you respond to someone else with hate and anger and guilt and resentment and shame, every single time you respond to your own thoughts, your own actions, your own self with all of those things, you are just feeding that into the world. The more we begin to be aware of who we are, honestly and imperfectly, with love and acceptance, the more we can wrap ourselves up in that and create some positive change from that. You cannot hoard love. You cannot become a more loving, accepting, unconditional individual and not let that affect everyone around you. That's the thing. So yeah, it's easy for us to look right now at those on the other side, those who are doing the bad things, and want to hate them and want to shame them and want everything else. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be creating education here. That is different. However, creating that hatred is only continuing to perpetuate a system of hatred. If those individuals learn love and unconditional acceptance, it's not going to be kept just for them and their friends, because that's not what love is. Love is this mindset of unconditional acceptance. And when you have that mindset, that extends everywhere. But you cannot also have that mindset for everyone and not yourself, because that's also not true love. When you truly start to tap into that resource of love and unconditionality, that starts to come out in everything that you do towards everyone. You start to see your own shortcomings very freely because you're not afraid of judging yourself for them. You're not afraid of being judged for them. You start to extend that to other people. And from that, we can all start to live a little bit more honestly, which means that there is less fear of being judged, which means that there's more openness to changing, to creating reconciliation. When we start to see ourselves very clearly for who we are and how we are in the world around us, that's when we will begin to create that change. And that change will happen so effortlessly because it's going to come from this very honest place of integrity, of this is just what we need to do now. Not this is what we should be doing. This is what we should have done years ago. This is what we should be doing now and how we should be moving forward. Because that is riddled with shame, with guilt, with fear. No, if we really do the inner work for ourselves, being able to see ourselves honestly and clearly, we start to bring that inner work to each other, which starts to build systems off of that inner work. Systems of love, systems of acceptance, systems where we don't need as many rules and laws of how we should be treating each other because it is there, because it is just available to us. So when we think about the education, which is so incredibly important right now, I think we also need to be thinking about that inner education and that inner work and trusting, because I know we all think that the only way to get somewhere is to micromanage it, trusting that if we start to teach our children love, if we start to practice for ourselves love, unconditionality, awareness, acceptance, non-judgment, those changes that we've been dreaming of, that we've been wishing someone else would do for us for so many years, will happen. And it will be the kind of happening that will last forever. Because once you experience that level of awakening, of awareness, of unconditionality, you don't go back because there is no better choice than that. You recognize the unlimitedness of that unconditionality and you let go of the very, very, very limited attitude of I'm wrong, he's wrong, she's wrong, this is wrong.